created in its most purest form. They were devoted to the Word of God. They were devoted to the fellowship, the koinonia in Greek, of brothers and sisters. They were in community and building relationships and keeping each other accountable and being with one another. He said also they devoted themselves to the breaking of bread. They did things called like meals with moments. That what a meal did was, watch, it would allow people to create deeper bonds with one another, to make intentional investments in their relationships. But we substitute that for other things like being too busy for relationships. And what they used meals for in the first century AD was to sit down and talk to one another and how are you doing and what's going on in your life and what's going on with your children. They made intentional deposits in each other's hearts over meals. They took communion over meals. They reminded themselves of the Lord over meals. But we traded that in for all these other substitutes. And then we wonder why our marriages are in trouble and why our children are in trouble and why we have poor relationships, because we're too busy to make investments in one another. Followers in the first century, the church in its purest form, were devoted to prayer, i.e., they were devoted to intimacy with God. They were devoted to a secret place with God. They were devoted to being in the presence of God. Instead of being intimate with God and being in God's presence, and instead of having a secret place, all across this nation, instead of having prayer lives, we are self-reliant. We will not pray. We are self-dependent. We will not pray. We treat intellect like an idol, that we depend more on what we know than who we know. So we're trying to be the God of our own lives, that we do not consult the Lord before we make decisions. We marry people without prayer. We take jobs without prayer. We move to different states without prayer. We switch churches without prayer. We sign contracts without prayer. And all across this nation, we have a culture of prayerlessness. This is what made that church powerful. This is what made that church transformative. This is what made that church grow. This is what that church was devoted to. But right now in our nation, man, we have substituted these things that this church was devoted to for all these other things that are far more dangerous, and is creating an American Christian culture that is disconnected from the Christ of the scriptures and disconnected from Orthodox Christianity. If we will be a powerful church in this nation, if we will see signs, wonders, and miracles, it won't just because we put the word revival on a service. It will be because we are devoted to the Word of God, and because we are devoted to the fellowship, and because we're devoted to intentional breaking bread, and because we're devoted to prayers and calling on the name of our God.